If the US is so bad, why is everyone trying to come here? That's a common refrain that I hear from Westerners who don't like the idea that we push back on their country, don't like the idea that we share statistics about how their country's not number one the way they always thought it was. Today, I'm going to share with you actual reasons from an actual immigration firm about why people are moving to the United States and tell you why almost none of them should matter to you. Nomad Capitalist is here to talk to 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors, sometimes 9- and 10-figure entrepreneurs and investors. So obviously the people that we are talking to have different needs. That's the overarching reason for why some people can move to your country, whether it's the US, Canada, Australia, Germany, you fill in the blanks. What I find interesting is I think the same kind of negative people who complain about, unskilled immigration are the same ones saying, well, everyone's coming here, it must be great. If you're comparing yourself to people who are fleeing a war zone or people who are coming for economic opportunity from a country that you look down on, that's not really a ringing endorsement of your country. So let's talk to people, peer to peer, why you'd move to the US. This is from stilt.com. Why people want to move to the United States. Number one, better work opportunities. Obviously, a better job is why a lot of people choose to leave their countries to move to the US. Now, I spend all my time outside the United States. I spend a lot of my time in emerging economies. Do you know what I find? And you won't see this until you go there. The vast majority of people like their country. They like their friends. They like their family. They feel good about their country. Many of them outside of the Western world feel like their country's headed in the right direction, which is kind of the opposite of what a lot of Westerners feel, where they feel we're going in the wrong direction. They're not proud anymore. You go to Malaysia. Most Malaysians don't want to leave. Maybe they want to go on a trip. They like the country. They like the weather. The men like their women. Can you imagine a country that works like that? You probably don't see that much if you live in the US, but we do this thing where we project onto other people. They all must be like us. And it's just not the case. And so I think a lot of these people are like, you know what, I could probably make a few more bucks in the US, but it costs me more to live, and it's dangerous, people are getting shot. Most people don't want it. But okay, if you want better work opportunities, if you're part of that group, if you are an entrepreneur or investor, do you need a job? Even if you have a job, if you're talented and you can work and you're watching YouTube, you're listening to a podcast, you can't get a remote job. If you speak English, and if you're listening to this, I hope you do, then you can't, what do you need to be in the US for? The great democratization of work, and part of what's causing those Western countries to be less optimistic, is I can hire someone with US level talent in other places because there are people who learn search engine optimization, SEO, web development, videography, any number of things that can be done from anywhere. I mean, you can learn this stuff through online courses. How many university courses are free? How much can you learn on YouTube? Adobe, whatever you can get for $25 a month. I mean, people are doing this. We have clients who are from, far-flung countries. Egypt and Thailand and Brazil and Uruguay and Argentina. And there's all kinds of countries that make millions of dollars a year because they started a business online the same other people did. We know people who live all over the world and they make money. So if you do a job where you have to go there and do the job, sure, the US may be better. We have had clients who are doctors and dentists, and they're either selling their practice or they're removing themselves as the day-to-day practitioner. But no place on earth better than the United States to make money as a doctor or a dentist, in my experience, than the US. Even other Western countries, doesn't compare. Never seen so many 7-figure doctors and dentists and people who build clinics, a couple of clinics, make a lot of money. So sure, that's going to be harder to build. You're not going to go to Malaysia and build a 7-figure income running a dental clinic. For the very reason that when I went and did a dental exam recently in Malaysia just to check on something, it cost me $8. All right? You ain't making 7 figures doing that. A city center, top English-speaking guy, smart guy, $8. So right? People are coming to the U.S. because they want to, whatever their skill is, that they can make more money being a welder in the U.S. than they can. wherever they're from. You can go and you can make the same amount of money and then pay $8 for the dentist. Number two, better living conditions. When foreigners think about the United States, they see it as a paradise that offers an ideal life. And I always think back to a textbook I had in like 7th grade, where it said immigrants in like the 1850s were told the streets were paved with gold. And then what was the quote? They said, not only were they not paved with gold, but I was expected to pave them. This is what branding's all about. This is why you drink Coca-Cola and not RC Cola, because you like the branding. And so that's why, the same reason my acquaintance from Nicaragua thinks his passport is terrible, because he can't go to one country, the United States. He can go to pretty much everywhere else in the world, except US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. He can go to a lot of countries. He's got a pretty strong passport, actually. But there's this branding about better living conditions. Every American I talk to, and Canadians too, they say it has taken a sharp downward turn in the last 10 years. I haven't been there in the last 10 years. I talk to people, whenever I've got a complaint and I'm frustrated, why did I come to this country? Why did I come to Serbia? I call up my friend in like Chicago. My internet's not working for 3 hours. Something happened. It rarely happens. He said, yeah, my internet went out of the office. It's been out. For 2 weeks I've been trying to chase them down, and I pay 3 times the price you do. It's just the better living conditions aren't there. My father came to Kuala Lumpur. He said, this is better than a lot of cities in the U.S. I think you'd rather live in Kuala Lumpur than Indianapolis. Because in either place, if you're successful, you're going to live in the good neighborhood. All right? So maybe, for someone who's just starting out, it's a little bit better if you're not, if you're from Indianapolis and you don't have a lot of money. I guess you'd rather live there than not have a lot of money in Malaysia. But if you have money, you can find better living conditions anywhere. I would argue that Asia is much more consumer convenience oriented in terms of food delivery, just all kinds of services and shopping. It's all better. The people are on each other's throat. The cultures are more, they get along better. I don't know what living conditions, quite frankly, are better in the U.S. And listen, I mean, if you live in, Malibu on the beach, you can recreate that somewhere else as well, where the culture's still better. Better education. Maybe there's a point there. You don't have to move to the U.S. to go to the educational system, and part of why the U.S. has problems is they educate people and they don't let them stay and work, and they send them back, and then they wonder why they don't have some of the talent that they need. People are being educated and kicked out. So if you want to go to the U.S., go to school. Keep in mind, you could go to a school in Europe and pay a heck of a lot less. It's one benefit of having European residence, or I guess citizenship, for your kids. Better educational opportunities at a much lower price, but fine. If you want to go to the U.S. and be educated, fine. In some cases, we do very little of this, but my understanding is a lot of those student visas, it's fine on the tax side. So fine, do that. Safety from persecution and violence. Again, some of the same people who are like, yeah, okay, they can't go to that country. They're the same ones who, like in the Syrian war, say, well, the Syrians should just go to Turkey. If they're just fleeing persecution and violence, why don't they go to Turkey and stay there? Why do they go to Germany? That's what they say. It's not what I'm saying. But safety from persecution and violence, there's nowhere else to go. The U.S. is the one place to go. And I think that this is one of those issues where people, they kind of take both sides of the issue. There's plenty of places to go where there's no persecution and violence. I met a guy once who was from Syria. And Malaysia likes to take care of people from Muslim countries. He was fleeing violence and said, hey, they had some program. They flew him in and he was living there. They're helping him get a job. So you don't have to go to the U.S. to flee that. And by the way, I don't think any of us watching, I hope, are fleeing persecution and violence. Quite frankly, I felt more persecuted in the United States. I was trying to get the hell out of there. Reunification with family in the U.S.? All right, fine. You can say that about anywhere, by the way. That's not really a reason to move. You have family from the U.S., you maybe want to move to the U.S. It's one of the harder countries to do that, by the way. And quite frankly, I'd rather you tell your family to go somewhere that functions better. Marriage, I mean, these are all kind of personal reasons. So these are the reasons, and I have nothing against this site, but these are the reasons. What are the main reasons for immigration to the United States? And quite frankly, I say, if those are the best reasons you got, I can show you a lot of places that are better, because I can show you a lot of Americans who come to Nomad Capitalist who are tired of people on each other's throats. It's like, how many articles do you read about the brewing civil war and maybe the country's, people, it's going to break in two? I don't really think that's going to happen, but the fact that it's so discussed, the fact that so few people, young people now, are proud to be Americans, maybe some of them because they are, leaning towards that communist orientation, all the more reason that they're going to take over in the coming years, why you should get out. But those are the reasons. If you have money, I really see no reason, unless you are in that rare, doctor, dentist, lawyer category where, maybe you can do law remotely, maybe you can do telemedicine, but maybe those people should consider staying there just to make some money. Even then, we've had people who own medical clinics, they make millions a year. I mean, maybe at a certain point you say, I'm going to move and let the business run itself, or I'm going to sell the business and go and retire somewhere else and start my next business. I just don't see any great reason why a 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur or investor needs to live, and let's just not pick on the United States, other than that's where I'm originally from. Why do you need to live in Canada? What do you get there? And then you look at all the social stuff where, like, you're single and the dating culture is like a war and everybody's just burnt out. I mean, it just sounds like a terrible place. If I had no money and the US was the closest country and I felt unsafe, I can see that point. And I have sympathy for those folks. And quite frankly, outside of the Nomad Capitalist realm, I'd say, well, hey, you guys in your failed drug war forced the drug rat to come to those countries, and then you complain those people come because the drug war comes through their countries. I just say to myself, how are any of these reasons why you should be living in the US other than it feels nice when you don't want to move, when you don't want to confront reality, when you don't want to acknowledge that your country's been losing in every metric since I've been born. It's been losing in every metric. Peace, safety, passport quality, taxation, economic freedom, personal freedom, press freedom, every single metric it's going down, and other Western countries are the same. And for some people it hurts. It hurts because the only scrap of identity they can cling to is I'm American or I'm British. You take that away, it's like, what do you have? You have nothing. That's what makes them feel better than other people. I hope that's not you. And if it's not, then let's look at the reality. I mean, you're welcome to stay there for family, marriage, whatever. Listen, I don't judge you. You should do what you want. I understand most people aren't going to leave their country for any reason, even if there's a war, and if there's anything throughout history. But you can't really argue that some people moving, to make a few extra bucks means that you, as an already successful person, should stay, and that they're at all related